Hello and welcome to 4000 Counting. I'm Watty and we are joined for the second time by Ice Hockey UK CEO Mr. Henry Staelens. Henry, welcome back to the show, buddy.
Thank you, Nikki. Pleasure to be here again.
Kind of rushed to start a little bit there because we've been talking for 15 minutes off air, and ladies and gents, this is sure to be a exciting episode, and it's a very, very important episode for a multitude of reasons. But first and foremost, that the reason we've got you on today is Scottish ice hockey, English ice hockey, and Ice Hockey UK are putting out to vote about a merger. And I, for one, I really want to see the merger happen. We've had situations over the past few years where it's been talked about, but the press went out yesterday. So Henry, talk us through getting that press release out. Obviously, you've been sitting on it for a little while now, and all the behind the scenes chats.
Yeah, sure. Firstly, fully aware this has been tried before. I think we're in a very different place now, and the approach we're taking is very much like we want to give more to the sport rather than maybe take things off people. So, but yeah, it's been in the works ever since I walked in the door nearly 3 years ago. I couldn't understand why there's three governing bodies doing similar things. We're not a sport with enough money to do that properly. We've got a brilliant amount of volunteers across the sport, but with the fifth most watched team sport in the country, we should be completely run by professionals, and then we should be able to work with volunteers to give them something back. So professional development, etc., etc. There's certainly a role for volunteers. They are the lifeblood of what we do, but they should be led by paid, accountable people that the sport can hold to account. So yeah, we've been talking about it for 3 years. We held a dummy vote on the AGM of EIH back in September. That had 100% approval. Some people say you should have done the vote then, but I think it was still the wrong time. We want to make sure that everyone's really comfortable. And yeah, we want to make sure that whatever we're doing is a win for the entire sport, and that we give people more rather than taking anything away.
Out of interest, what percentage of the vote do you need to pass through this merger?
75.
And that is being made. So who could actually vote on this? Because I was reading up on the website, and I know that yourself and a couple of the other lads are hosting a Teams meeting on is it the 25th or the 26th, where people that
Yeah,
are going to vote that can come on and ask questions. So who is it that which members, sorry, can like vote on this thing here?
there is. I've not got the list in front of me, but it's clubs with a certain number of registered players. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
so, and yeah, one of the reasons we did that dummy vote really was to make sure that everyone who's due a vote could access it. There were a couple of things people we needed to add. But yeah, we did the due diligence back then to make sure that it was fair when it came to the real time of doing it.
So one of the sticking points last time this happened was the sheer amount of rec clubs and some of them people voting and all sorts of different things like that. Do the rec guys get a vote this time round?
Yeah, Rec have the biggest as a group. They have the biggest voting percentile. We're actually meeting with some of the leaders of Rec tomorrow. We think again we can do even more for them than the sport currently does. So yeah, I'm hopeful that we're not taking anything away from anyone. We're giving people more. So we'll see, but I'm positive that we can make sure this works for them.
So you touched on having the dummy vote at the EIH. Do you know if the SIH have done anything similar in the lead up to this process?
They've not done a dummy vote. They obviously, I think the last time the merger got close, they held a vote, and they were in favour of it. But no, we're going to do a similar amount of meetings with everyone in Scotland because it's important to us that everyone in Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, and England all feel equally engaged because we genuinely don't want to alienate anyone from this. It's about just giving more. The way we're set up at the moment just cannot serve the sport the way the members should expect. If you look at us versus Hungary, the reason I use Hungary is because they're a similar scale nation. They've got
Yeah.
9,000 members. They've got about 4 or 5,000 members less than us, but they've got the same amount of clubs. And the world ranking's not dissimilar. They have 25 full-time staff, and
Yeah, makes sense.
we've got four. So that's
So
yeah, it's never an excuse for not being perfect in what we do. But
When you say full-time staff, Henry, obviously you're going to have like so. For example, Peter Russell, he's your GB coach, and then you're going to have physios that are going to be there for the tournaments. You're going to have bits and pieces. But if I'm not mistaken, you're talking about 25 staff running the off ice as well as the on ice, getting the marketing right, getting the governance right. Probably have a team liaison. And what sort of staff are making up that 25 from Hungary there?
yeah, I mean, part of it will be governance, part will be like say performance. We would love to have a full-time development coach for men and women to look after that pathway and make sure it's completely consistent. We'd love to have more people looking after member communications. I think communications solve a lot of problems. More people looking after referees, development, coach development. All these areas have been looked after by the contractors or volunteers in the past, and we've done a very, very good job. But you look at the sports that are bigger us, rugby, football, and cricket. Those really important areas aren't being run by volunteers, or at the very least, they've got someone in there who's paid and accountable. And I think we owe that to our members. And that's why I keep saying this is not about just growing for the future. It's about serving the sport so much better now.
Well, also, if it's a paid job, as you say, you can hold them accountable for performance. If Sally from accounts is just fucking helping you out, it's a bit hard to come in and be like, right, we need you to move your ass off out of here because do you know what I mean? You can't really dial up that pressure quite the same as, hey, you're making good money for being here. We're expecting you to deliver results, and as it stands, you're not doing it. So you can have a little bit more say in that matter, right?
100%. It's like everyone who we try and show appreciation to volunteers as much as we can, but there's a reason that people in this world are paid. Like that's how you show
Yeah.
appreciate that is how you show appreciation. Like you can try and re-engineer it as much as you want, but yeah, like having people that are openly recruited, accountable, completely committed to that one thing, you're always going to get a better result. But yeah, it's not to say the volunteers haven't delivered brilliant results, but it's unfair almost to put that kind of pressure and workload on volunteers, the members pay a membership fee. They need to be served properly, and the reason they can't be served to the level that I'd like them to be is that we've got three governing bodies doing, we've got a triplication of roles, a triplication of systems. Like there's so much inefficiency in how we operate. If that was all in one place, we get you'd spend less on systems. You'd have one strategy, one culture, one everything.
So when it comes to the finances under the merger, so well, first of all, actually, before we get to the finances, so if you guys get the go ahead, obviously we're gonna go through kind of five big points throughout the episode here. But I was just wondering, so do the people like for example, so you got John Colley is Scottish chairman right now as it stands. If the merger happens, does he remain chairman? But how does it work? Because I don't imagine you can have three chairmen. Do you have, how does it work in terms of where do people sit once it does merge?
And that's something for what will happen is if the merger goes ahead on the 17th, we'll get the vote, and then we'll be working with the membership groups and the current boards and also a law firm and the governance agency over 12 months in 2026 to work
Okay.
out all that deal. But the key is that all of that detail hinges on these 5 points that we'll talk about. But for me, we want to retain as much of the boards and the talent within the sport as possible. So it might be one example could be you'd have a senior board and then you'd have an advisory board for the home nations. So I think it's
Okay.
important
Yeah.
it's important we find a role for everyone that served the sport so well. And I think we can probably be more effective. You've got more people looking at the sport, but not everyone's sitting around a massive board table.
Would you, obviously, Pete Russell's currently the Great Britain head coach with an overlook. Well, with a merger, would he be then overlooking all the national programs, or is this something that again you touched on bringing development coaches in? Ultimately, the goal right now is for England to get English players better and Scotland to get Scottish players better. And hopefully, a few of them get good enough to come through and play for GB. But under one banner, we want everybody wants everybody to get better, and we want to produce more players for GB. how do you go about that? Do you stick Pete in a more full-time role where he's over because he's obviously not doing club coaching right now? Does he oversee it all the way down to like Scotland 14s or England 14s or U13s? Do you get someone who oversees all of it, or do you start? You talked about before, like paying people a wage to do a job. Do you start bringing in specific coaches, getting back guys that have maybe escaped the game for no through no fault of their own the last few years, and maybe looking for like a way back in?
Yeah, I think it's a mix. I think you've got to have an element of consistency at the top, and ensure that the playing style as close as possible down the system is the same. So when kids transition through certain age groups, it's not a complete shock. You don't have to re-coach them, but there's definitely some element of age appropriate coaching in there. Like coaching a 13-year-old is very different to coaching an 18-year-old. We have worked much closer with the GB players, for example, that you mentioned there. We had Stephen Murphy, looking after the GB Futures 16s alongside Ewan King. So we are very keen, and obviously David Clark on the board, John O'Phillips, we speak to regularly as a group. So I think the more of that experience we can bring into the program, the better. Because I think I've said this on record a number of times. GB might never be the most technical nation in the world, but our character and our values, which comes from those guys who have played so many games for GB and done so well, like if kids can learn that on the way up, that's a big part of the battle. So I think for me, I would like to see some full-time coaches across men
Yeah.
and women. I'd like to see more investment in para. I think there's a real opportunity there when they've not been funded previously. And I think yeah, just having less. If you've got a different style of play at every age group and you've got a different culture and a different mentality and a different philosophy, it's never going to be fully joined up. So I think we need to harness the expertise of all the people within the system, but having one person or two people paid to lead that.
So obviously we've seen the European Cup of Nations kick off this year, and that's a new initiative by the IHF, and it actually gave Great Britain a chance to give seven debutants their first caps, and it got to see some National League players making that step up. How did you view that, and what can we expect out? Because none of us really knew what this European, pardon me, Cup of Nations was going to be there. Like we didn't when the roster came out, I was kind of half expecting to sit Dowdy and the usual bunch, but it was completely um, left field and something that we need in order to have any sort of chance in the next 4 or 5 years here.
100%. That's why it happened. I think firstly, the IHF have introduced this to, in their words, create meaningful preparations for the World Championships. So rather than countries scrambling around to find friendlies, they wanted some kind of competitive tension, which I think is a really good thing. So we had Poland in November, we've got Edinburgh in February, and then we've got 4 games versus Italy, then World Championships. So compared to previous seasons, we've been able to plan miles ahead, and that gave us an opportunity to do what you just said. So I was very keen, speaking to our performance guys, that we can look at players from the NIHL. The NIHL standard is rising. We can't look at just what we've done the last 12 years. We need to look at what we're doing the next 12. And there's 3 other groups of games this year for those players that have done so well for GB previously to play in. There's no point choosing the same group that we're going to take in May, in November. We already know what that group can do. So
Yeah,
there was some leadership in that group. You had like Wally Betteridge, etc.
yeah.
And then in February, you'll see a more expected team, but still with some
Couple of
debutants.
new guys. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's important. You can't struggle all new guys together at once because, as you know, it wouldn't work. We can't
yeah. That's
also having the
could be
same.
could be a rough few days for the boys. Like,
Exactly right. And I was so proud with how like the game versus Slovenia went exactly how we thought it would. Right, like
yeah,
it was the first time together on international level. That's going to take some time to acclimatise to. But then against Italy, who are so well funded, because it's the Olympic year, and then on to Poland, who are playing brilliantly, to be that competitive and nearly cause an upset. I thought that was really impressive. And even if we find 3 players in there that weren't in the mix for the World Championships,
yeah.
then the job's been done, right? So February, I think you'll see again some surprise names who deserve their call up, but then more of the expected group, and then obviously onto the 4 games versus Italy, you'll have your World Championship group moving forward.
4 games against Italy. What brought that on, and how did that come about? With the what is it? It's like 2 home, 2 away.
Yeah, the Dolmio Cup.
Love
Yeah,
it.
if they're listening, yeah. So Italy are in a really good place because of the funding they've had. They're going to be a really good challenge for us. They'd be a good challenge anyway. Like we've seen the games against them previously, but yeah, they've been really good to work with. They'll play 2 games here in Nottingham and Milton Keynes, and then we'll play 2 games there in Varese on the way to Zurich. So it's a really good challenge for us to warm up in that sense.
Well, it's just great to see some proper warm-up games. I know previously, before COVID came in, we had like Canada was arranged and a couple of other teams were arranged, and we looked like we were actually going into the Worlds on the back of quite a few good, like decent warm-up games, and then it kind of obviously all fell apart because of
Yeah,
COVID. But like just seeing like when the fixtures were announced, seeing the opportunities, you're getting 10 games before the World Championships. That is unheard of in my entire time being involved with UK hockey. We have never once had 10 games going into a World Championships.
no, and agreed. And that to me was obviously very important, but it was also important that we use them like cleverly, if that's the right word. Like I said, different group here, new opportunities there, and then they've still got the 4 warm-up games and World Championships. So it's not like that group won't have had enough time to get to the final group. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see a couple of surprise names in there based on February and November, which is brilliant.
Here's a question for you. So obviously the Elite League are kind of their separate entity. We don't see, obviously I do a lot of traveling around Europe. When when the European teams generally play each other in tournaments or friendlies or whatever, we have a European break, but they have a break in their top leagues. We haven't seen the Elite League do that. Is that something they've spoke to you about? You spoke to them about? Because ultimately, in the future, if we're going to have opportunities to play multiple games extra per year, it does take its toll on the body, and some of these boys will need maybe a week or 3 or 4 days. Is that something you spoke about with the Elite League?
Yeah, I raised it pretty early on. I think I get their reasons. I don't necessarily
Their
agree with them.
business. Yeah.
I get their reasons, but I think yeah, you're right. Like there's a player welfare aspect to it. There's even giving fans a breather, and giving that space for international hockey to take precedent. So yeah, but the Elite League, I can't say anything bad about them. They even with the November, February, they understand that international selection takes priority. They've been great to work with. I worked closely with Tony Smith around the selections, and all the clubs were great. So whilst I do think there should be an international break to copy what the rest of Europe does, yeah, working with them over the last 3 years has been very positive.
There's some good people involved in the Elite League. I know they get a lot of shit from a lot of people, but actually, when you get to know these people, there's some good people, and ultimately, for a lot of these people, this like, we go back to the volunteer versus paid thing. This is their businesses. Like they want their business, their team's their business. They want it to succeed. They want to have as many bums on seats. They want to win silverware. They want to qualify for the playoffs. They want to have their best guys every week. I understand, and like I harped on when I interviewed Tony and when I interviewed Simsy, Todd, any of those ones. Like, when are we going to start to get some free to air games? And like, when are we going to get who's going to be the first one to take the crack at YouTube and not charge 15 quid for the stream? I get you're going to leave a lot of money on the table. I do understand. But all of a sudden, if you get 30,000 people tuning into your lives to watch your YouTubes, the ads that you can sell on that will eclipse any sum of money that you're getting from. But again, they go, but we've got that sum of money now. Like, how
I think
sorry, go on.
yeah, no, you're spot on. I was only going to agree with you. I think like what the Elite League does should be like it's very impressive. Like you say that they're all very well run businesses. They're for a sport for every club to make profit is so rare. A lot of other sports, it's like how much money can we not lose? So we should be very thankful that the Elite League does generate interest and profit. But I raise the same thing as you that in any walk of life, like sometimes you have to almost take a perceived step back to be part of a rising tide. So those 30,000 people that might watch on YouTube, they won't all be the same audience as always. So
Right.
you'll win another 500 fans per match who haven't watched you before or hadn't watched you for a while, they'll come to a game, they'll buy a shirt over time. So I agree. Like a lot, a lot of ice hockey does very, very well with what it's doing. But if they took a step back sometimes to take two or three steps forward, and that's obviously also what the merger is about. I think everyone would benefit. But yeah, again, the league's very impressive. The product's really good, and they've been very good to work with for GB. And there's some really good players from GB playing there now.
Let's go on to like the international stage, talk about getting that televised. Now, I am not a big fan of the BBC, but I could sure see the value in getting one of those like GB Italy games or a game from up in Edinburgh in February, packed barn full of half-pissed Scottish fans, really excited, screaming and shouting, getting a grandstand style, like game on BBC or a game where it's going to be viewed, whether it's YouTube, however you guys want to do it. But like, how do you go about like getting the national team out there? Because ultimately, they do have some diehards like GB Sports Club. These guys and girls, they travel all over the planet to
Mm-hmm.
to watch GB, and they are awesome. But there's a lot of people that have probably never seen a GB game, never even checked in on a GB score. How do we get these fans back in? Is it getting it on that free to air? Is it getting it on mainstream TV?
Yeah, you and I have spoken about it before. I think we even spoke about it a little bit before we came on air. But like, it doesn't matter. It's such a weird phenomenon that ice hockey is still seen as niche,
Yes, Matt.
and like it's watched by 1.4 million ticket holders every year. But you only ever see it in the mainstream news or on the mainstream television if something bad's happened or something viral's happened.
Yeah,
And trying to crack that nut is hard, even with funding agencies like Sport England or Sport Scotland, to get them to take ice hockey seriously as it's taken by the 1.4 million people that pay to watch it. Is it's a it's a really it's a really weird question to answer. So I agree. We need to do more. Again, to your point, can we take a step back to make it broader? That's not to say we
yeah.
don't focus on the core audience who built the sport, with everyone. You give them exactly the same amount of attention. You give them exactly the stuff they want. But if you broaden the way that we talk about it and the audiences we reach, you're more likely to get a BBC or a you know transfer gossip in the mainstream news. You'll never see that until
No.
it's seen as one of those top three sports.
It's just weird because it was like back in I don't know, like back in my dad's era, it was on grandstand and you switched on CFAX and it was one of the first results pages. And like I don't know, it sounded like a little bit old before my time here, but once upon a time it was, and you could definitely get back there. And Basingstoke have just reopened, right? So in the first 2 weeks, I took like six of my clients over the first 2 weeks. I've never been to an ice hockey game before. Two of them have already been back. Two of them are coming back next weekend. Two of them are coming back the next weekend after that. Bison just got seven new fans.
Yep.
Like, all I had to do was take them to a game. It really wasn't that hard. Just, what do you reckon of this, lad? So they were like,
Yep.
when am I coming back? Like,
I,
let's
I,
do this.
I've never known someone go to an ice hockey game and not say that was brilliant because like it's you don't even have to love sport. Like it's an experience, it's a concert, it's a sport, it's drama, it's storytelling, it's athletic, it's physical, all that stuff. Like, but you need to get them in the rink at the first time or the arena at the first time, and that's why we're bringing things like the NHL Street program. The NHL Street program tackles
Forgot that.
first the barriers into the sport for children, which I'm massively passionate about, and broadens the player base, but also for the clubs that they're local to. These kids will get two free tickets to go and watch a game, and they won't be ice hockey fans necessarily to start off with, but those kids are going to have to go with their parents, and their parents will hopefully love it, and it will become a family part of the family routine or family schedule. So I agree, but to your point, you've got to market a new people, whether that's dragging them along to the rink like you've done, or making it free to air, or NHL Street. Whatever we can do to broaden the people that watch the sport and fall in love with it is better.
Well, if you want some ideas, clubs out there, I put a throwaway kind of picture up last week, and I wasn't expecting it to get anywhere near the traction it did. I was just like, what what got you into hockey? Bonus points if you remember your first game. And it had like 450 comments in like 24 hours.
Yeah.
guys, as clubs, go look at where these people started because you'll see a theme. Oh, went to scouts and they got given 2 tickets, or little Johnny's gymnastics club went there, or a mum from swimming was like, "Do you want an extra ticket?" It's generally free, folks. It's generally free that somebody dragged somebody along. Somebody got a ticket from a school visit, or the bison came to lunch at my nursery and they chucked a few tickets on the side before they left. And now I've been going for 18 years, and my daughter now goes, and her daughter goes. Like it's just the comments, you can see how people get involved. And what we do know this, once you go once, you're screwed. Like
100%. And then life gets, yeah, very, very expensive because you follow it everywhere. 100,
yeah, exactly.
and it's the same. Like my son who's 3, like he won't watch anything else, but he loves going to watch ice hockey. Like
I love that.
because of the atmosphere, because of the colors and the zamboni and the broken sticks and all that stuff, right? Like
Yeah,
like kids love it. It's a nice, safe place to take them. But you have to get them there once, and that's my point. You mentioned like take a step back, give something away for free, and the lifelong value of it will be far more than the ticket you missed out on.
100%. Like two of my mates have already ordered like jerseys and that. Like they're full on. They're like,
Yeah,
oh yeah, I've got straight away. They're like after first period, I reckon they were talking
yeah.
about coming back the next weekend. By And it's funny, they come the second week. And then they're now buying like shirt off the back tickets, and they want to get involved in like the 50-50 and the Chucker Puck. But I was just saying, like, just between you boys there, you've put another tenner into Basingstoke, another 15 quid. Now you've ordered your jerseys. It's probably 30, 40, 50 quid profit in each one of those. So just by you two coming tonight, you've put about 170, 180 quid in the Bison's pocket. That is what makes this sport go around. Bringing new people in, it's new blood, it's new jerseys, it's extra 50-50s, it's extra shirt off the back. It keeps these clubs running.
100%, and it's kids as well, right? We did some
Yeah,
in my last role. We gave away 400 free home shirts once a year to local school kids, and
brilliant.
that's come along to the game to collect it. And you get a shirt on a kid's back early. That's their team.
Yeah.
They're not changing, and they will follow that team. They can't go on their own. So the parents have to come. The parents fall in love with it. Like it's just giving these kids and these parents an opportunity to try something new that isn't weird, that isn't actually that niche. And it is, yeah, it's the way forward. But you have to give something to get people in first.
Yeah. And so obviously you've been in this role since 23 now. So a couple of years, we probably spoke about, I don't know, 9, 12 months ago, something like that. How would you say your kind of second year has changed after your first year? Obviously, your first year was very much trying to get your governance in order
Yeah.
and put square pegs and square holes and round pegs and round holes, and that seemed to go all right. You seemed to get the people in the positions that you wanted. How have the kind of last 12 months been?
I always said year one was about governance, like you said. It's not the sexiest subject, but
It's
we
really
got
not.
it. No, but it was needed because there was a severe lack of trust and transparency in the sport. And also to receive public funds, you have to be code compliant. So there was 18 months work on that. And the second year was always going to be about people and operations, and that's really why we've led to this merger point. Um, how can we be more efficient? How can we deliver more money to the mid and bottom of the sport, actually onto the ice? How can we improve facilities? How can we do all that kind of stuff to be more efficient as a sport with the people we've got? And then year three was always going to be about commercialization and PR. So a lot of the stuff you spoke about there, like how do we recognize the commercial potential of GB and the pyramid? We can't really call it that, but the structure below. How do we help clubs commercialize and we get more money into the pockets of clubs to develop our players, etc., etc. So year one governance, year two, it's been very much about taking on the role with England Ice Hockey as well, showing that you can share services, almost like a precursor to a merger, right? To prove that the concept works. And yeah, it's been interesting. We've learnt a lot. We're evolving the GB pathway to make hopefully more impact on juniors and parents. And then year three will be about growing the sport.
It's funny because I remember Warren Ross used to tell us a story. His granddad used to play for like the Wembley Lions and Streatham back in the day. You're talking like 60s. And he was sponsored by Gillette, man. Like, there's a big billboard in town of him in his hockey gear having a shave with a razor. And, like, imagine Dowdy is handsome as shit, mate. That guy, like, let's get that guy a Gillette deal. Like, let's start showing people, like, these hockey players. Because the thing is, what everybody knows, given half a chance, not a boring interview like get pucks out, get pucks in, crash the
Yeah.
net. If you let these guys show their personalities, there's some big personalities that we could easily be a commercialized sport if we let people into the sport.
One, like, firstly, my mum actually reminded me. My mum bought me a cigarette card from Wembley Lions. I can't remember what the name of the guy on it was, but she was in some car boot sale or something, and yeah, there was a player on there on like a old cigarette card, which is quite cool. But yeah, no, agreed. Like ice hockey players are super marketable, super humble, super presentable, big personalities you have to be for this sport. Like their image rights should be worth 10 times other sports, but
Yeah,
we don't give them the opportunity to do that. So that's something we're looking to do at GB, but we need the resource to create a commercial unit. And we can't pay players to play for GB. Canada don't pay their players. It's not the way it can happen. But can we work with them to get, like you say, can we get Dowdy on Gillette, or
yeah.
whatever it might be? Like that shouldn't be as hard as we're made to be. And we've got the knowledge to do that at GB level in terms of image rights. And I think that's something we should definitely go after because also people buy into players, right? Like they might see the advert, follow Dowdy, go and watch him play, whatever it might be. So yeah, I agree. We should focus
What
more
about
on
getting like GB shirts in like JD Sports? I know from Basingstoke, Primark did a thing. I don't know, let's say over the last 6 months, where they were selling Leafs, Canes, Montreal, and one other team, or maybe two other teams.
yeah,
Like jackets, hats. I see a bunch of people around Basingstoke that are no way ice hockey fans wearing the merch.
yeah,
Like I've seen when I've been into sports shops, like when I was in Sweden, when I was in Germany, like I've gone into sports shops. You can get the national team's jersey in the sports shop. Like when I was in Bratislava, you can walk in off the street and pick up a Slovakia jersey. I bet there's not one place in the UK where you can walk in and grab a GB jersey. So
no, I mean hockey stations soon, but I know in terms of like a high street retail
yeah,
shop.
like a high street. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, no, and yeah, you're right. I've seen people in Maple Leafs caps around, and I thought I was seeing things, but it's definitely I looked into it as a Primark thing. But yeah, again, it's just people see the sport as people don't realize that the sport's anywhere near as big as it is in this country. When people find out what I do, they're like, "Well, that's pretty niche." And like,
It's
it's
really
like
not.
when I first started, I spent 10 minutes educating them, but now it's like, yeah, okay. So
Yeah,
yeah,
just bored of it.
yeah. So yeah, I do agree, and I would love to get to that point where it was seen as for what it is, like the fifth most watched team sport, and the shirts are up there with rugby union.
Yes, that would be awesome. Like, and if we can get, like, say Nottingham, you've got one of these Italy games at Nottingham. If you can get that place packed and loud, and GB put a really good performance on Italy, and for whatever reason it's easily accessible to those that can't make it, do you start building something straight away? What I was going to ask, like something, do you host? Obviously, you talked about the finances, talked about people from within maybe Sport England or Lottery or whoever it may be. That you probably have to try and explain to them what hockey even is. They've probably never seen a game. Do you ever be like, right, you're gonna come and sit in a box with me? Or like, I'm gonna come and sit you on the glass. Come to a game, sit on the glass. Well, GB are gonna play Italy here. We got all our top dogs out, and we're gonna
Yeah.
treat you to this, and then you're gonna see why we want you to get off your wallet and give us some money.
If I could tell you, Nicky, the thing that has riled me up the most, and I'm a pretty calm character, but the thing that's been riled me up the most over 3 years is trying to get funding agencies to appreciate the scale of the sport and the impact it has on communities. And even if we got one team to the Olympics, men, women, para, that
Yeah,
means 10 times more than winning 5 golds at curling. Okay.
yeah,
Um, but it hasn't quite translated yet. We're getting there. But if we like I was thinking like, if I could have taken the CEO of UK Sport, the CEO of Sport England, and stuck them in the middle of Nottingham or stuck them in the middle of Prague when
yeah.
when we're playing Canada in front of 18,000 people. There is no other sport, Olympic sport in the UK that has anything like that following.
Not even close.
So no, so it does rile me up daily because we're funded very, I think, unfairly compared to other sports. And even if you look at other nations, at ice hockey, um, you know, Hungary, 25 staff, 10 million. Finland, I think,
Yeah.
around about 25 million. And we get less than a million. So, and we're not 25 times worse than them, to be
No.
clear. So we have definitely overachieved. Pete Russell and all the guys that have been around GB for a long time, and also on the women's side, record results. Like we've definitely overachieved, and all we really want is like a bit of seed funding that we can then commercialize and turn into a lot more by hosting the world, by hosting Canada, by having a clear retail strategy, by bigger partnerships with more mainstream brands. But to do that, we need some element of seed funding. We're not asking for Finland type money, we're not asking for Hungary type money, but just something to push us over the edge is all we need.
When they come to sit and make the decisions of, giving us less than a million, with the merger, if the merger's successful, do you see that number growing on the back of that?
Now, you can never guarantee it, of course, but whether I see the elite end growing or not, I mean, UK Sport only fund the elite end, so they fund GB men and women.
Got
They're
you.
not particularly interested in the pathway juniors. That is more Sport England, Sport Scotland. That's talent funding, that's potential funding. At the moment, there is no Sport England, Sport Scotland funding, which is
That's
another
all.
no. We're the biggest sport by a country mile that's not got public funding from those two
Ow.
agencies. Sport Scotland aren't, sorry, Scottish ice hockey, as good as they are, aren't co-compliant. Again, that's because of
Okay.
like governance stuff. They're volunteer led, and Sport England, sorry, England ice hockey have had some troubles in recent years, which we've now rectified. England ice hockey are now co-compliant with Sport England, so they now have access to funding. But if they were to merge together with Ice Hockey UK, we'd have one compliant body that can go after Sport NI, Sport Scotland, Sport England, Sport Wales, as well as
Yeah.
all the other funding pots that are more community focused that would be really good for the NHL Street program. So that's one of the major quick wins with merging. I would definitely see the talent funding going up because there's none. So that
Yeah.
definitely
Well,
goes
yeah.
up. Yeah. And I would hope that the elite funding would go up over time. But the biggest thing that will make a difference to the elite funding is getting a team to the Olympics.
It really would. Yeah. Because just having the eyes that the Olympics brings, you're talking billions of people potentially tuning in. And as well as I do, GB Team Canada, first game of the Olympics, every single UK ice hockey fan at this point is going to be watching that game.
And probably any sort of like multi-sports fan because it's
Yeah,
Canada
yeah,
and it's the Olympics. And then you hope they get an interest and they think, I didn't know GB were that good at ice hockey, and they go, what's their local team? And that's really why UK Sport are interested in that level. But to get there, you need to invest in getting the teams together more often, the pathway, the development. We don't have the resources or the structure at the moment to allow that. So, a lot of other nations will get together 5, 6, 7 times a year. This is, to your point earlier, really the first year we've managed to get together multiple times for meaningful competition and camps.
How do we? I wanted to ask you earlier, but we kind of moved on to a different subject. This is kind of a good way to bring this back. How do we get more games for the U18s and the U20s? Obviously, we touched about the GB Futures. That was a good thing to see. Kids went out to Estonia. They got a few games under their belt there. How do we make sure that the U18s and the U20s are preparing properly? They're getting proper training camps. They're getting proper warm-up games. This is something that's been notoriously bad even since I played GB. Luckily, when I played GB one year, we went to France and we played France twice, so that was like really beneficial. But like the year before, I think we played fucking Nottingham Lions at 1 a.m. and like the old barn in Nottingham. Like there wasn't really much going on, and it's not got much better over the years. So how do we make sure these kids are getting more game time, more like training camps before they're going?
Yeah, and it's also meaningful um, game time as well. Like playing, like not playing, like you said, I think the Lions, you said, but like, can we? The Estonia trip was really important because we played against 3 other nations. There were no club teams. I don't believe involved in that. With the 20s, we're looking at an opportunity in Hungary, which will be a multi-year opportunity where we'll play other comparative nations that will really push us. One of the things that we do at GB Ice Hockey versus other Olympic sports in this country is we don't like we fully fund the 20s, the 18s, and in other sports, a lot of parents might have to pay subs for kit or travel or whatever. I've maintained that if you get to GB level, you should be looked after like a professional. We might not be able to pay
100%.
you, but that does then limit the amount of opportunities we can give. So for me, one of the things with the merger is we create a GB pathway down to 14, and we have GB experience camps that run alongside it. GB experience camps are paid for but subsidized, and the GB pathway is free. And that gives multiple opportunities for parents that either want to go on one trip or two trips or just be in the pathway. We need to give more access to opportunity in this country. But what I don't want everyone to do is like we're not here to make money. We're here to give as much opportunity as possible. So it's trying to find a balance between that. So for me, it's about that pathway, having one person overseeing the whole thing, making sure that kids have got the best opportunity to make it if they've got the talent and ambition to do so, but also having really carefully selected camps and tournaments in the experience side where it is pay to play, but it's run by GB coaches and the GB way.
Yeah, because something that I've obviously because I've been doing these trips for quite a while now and going across Europe, and it sounds mad, but you could hire a bus, drive to Vienna, and use Vienna as your camp. You could play Austria, where you can travel 30 minutes. You're in Bratislava. You could play a team out in Slovakia. You could come back to Vienna, and the next day you could easily go to Brno, which is 90 minutes. You're in Czech. You could probably play against a Czech junior Czech Elite League 18s or
Yeah,
20s team quite comfortably, and that would be very, very, very good
they would
competition.
be incredible. Yeah,
Yeah, you could come back, and then the next day you could be an hour and a half. You're over in Budapest. Like I know, like these things cost money. That's 4 or 5 nights in a hotel. That's a bus for 5 days. That's feeding players. I understand these things cost money, but if we ever want to become a long time Pool A nation, then we're gonna have to bite the bullet somewhere. You have to spend the money, and these sort of things. These are the things that those nations over there are already doing. They're already having friendlies against each other because they can't. That's no different from me going to Guildford, going Bratislava to Vienna.
yeah. One I couldn't agree more. This is not an excuse, but one of the things we walked into is that there had been no we hadn't been budgeting in 4 year cycles. So it's almost like, oh, oh God, there's an Olympic qualifying campaign, which is very expensive. So it was about 250,000 for the men's and women's Olympic qualifying campaigns, right? And that
Yeah,
had not been budgeted for in the 3 years prior. So we're now in the final year of the quad. Unfortunately, neither team qualified, got very close. Um, so this year is very transitional. If we merge, we have 4 year budget cycles aligned to Olympics, aligned to public funding, aligned to membership, everything. And we build that pathway. We can reduce the costs, the amount of spending on systems and technology and all that kind of stuff, right? That, as I said from the start, that goes into ice time. That goes into the place that actually has the most impact. So it's certainly not out of the question that we can definitely have more repetition. But for me, it also needs to have long-term planning, like we mentioned earlier with Italy and the amount of events we've got for GB men this year. We should have the same sort of schedule for other age groups, but it should be planned out 2 years in advance, 3 years in advance, which
yeah.
is why we're looking at deals like with Hungary, where we have a 3 year deal to play, the Four Nations every year for our 18s or 20s. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think we're sort of at the back end now of like a period that wasn't planned ahead for.
Because I'm not being funny. If you're a 15-year-old now and your ambition is to play for GB18s, you got to have a good club year this year. But if you're looking and going, ah, next year GB18s we're gonna go and play France, Germany, and Slovakia. You're like, I want to be on that fucking team. Like I want to play against those nations. Like so you're working your little ass off in that summer. You're going in the gym. You're hitting the pavement, you're hitting the bag, you're shooting pucks, you're doing whatever it is that you can in that off ice to be ready to go in order to want to go. Believe me, like I played in a couple of world champs and it was the years I got to play against France, Germany, Austria, they were like much more meaningful and no disrespect to like playing Estonia, Lithuania, and some of the teams that we played in that lower tournament. Like knowing that you're playing against like you go to Germany, like we I think they had 6 draft picks on their on their team.
Yeah,
Like it was a joke. Like, and that was something that made you want to be in the team. You wanted to make that team more than anything in the world.
yeah, and that's why we looked at the Poland trip as like, even if you're under 23 and you're still in the NHL rather than the elite league, like we've got to have something that's like tangible to aspire to. Like you will be if you're good enough, you will be selected. And also we've got to have a better partnership with the Elite League moving forward about more representation of Brits in the Elite League over the coming years. Again, something tangible that people can work towards. I think that's what really elevates the entire pathway, is that they can see that this isn't all just like a teenage thing, but there is genuinely careers at the other side of it. So I absolutely agree with your point, which is why we're looking at these multi-year deals with very good nations. But we also need to make sure that there's like something that people can actually grapple onto at the end.
And, I'm sorry, there's no forewarning with this, but like, so for example, let's say you wanted to host one of these. Obviously, you know what it's like, going to be like in Edinburgh, you know what's going to be like in Nottingham. But I more mean like if you were going to host an under 20 thing where you bring Hungary over and you bring France over and you bring, I don't know, Austria, whoever, just a few nations that are fairly close.
Yeah.
If you're hosting them, how much would that? Because obviously you're going to have one, two, three, what, 6 games to go over probably 2 or 3 days. So you're going to need plenty of ice time. You're going to need officials. You're going to need volunteers. You're going to need what's that going to cost? What would that cost Ice Hockey UK to host something like that?
It depends how you do the arrangement. I mean, if you've got a multi-year deal, you would typically do it where you bear all the costs in the year that you host,
Yeah,
and they bear all the year and the cost. So it ends up working out about the same. But again, you can budget for it. If you know that you're hosting in year three, you would build up the reserves in years one and two, for example. But the most expensive thing is always accommodation. Doesn't surprise you. Like
yeah,
you're looking at, I mean, twin rooms, but then you've got, food could be anywhere between 60 and 100 quid a day per player. It does add up, for sure. So to give you an example, just to send an under 18s or 20s team away for World Championships, there's no pre-camp, there's nothing extra. You're looking somewhere in the region of 70 to 100,000.
flights and hotels and food and
Yeah, it's
yeah,
it's like I said, and again, this is the other thing maybe public funding agencies don't fully understand. Ice hockey is a really expensive sport because you've got at least
yeah,
30 people. You've got 30 people. They've all got extra baggage. They
yeah,
eat a lot. The equipment's expensive. It's a lot more expensive than maybe running a lot of other sports. So yeah, they're not costs you can avoid. What we can do is when we start commercializing next year, how have we not got a deal with an airline? How have we not gotten a deal with a hotel
yeah.
chain? Where we're not even looking for cash necessarily on some of these deals. It's like benefit in kind, and I think that's really where we can start to win some money back for the system. That then
Well,
goes
yeah,
back.
imagine you whack a Ryanair or an EasyJet or Wizz Air, whoever it is,
Yeah.
on your jerseys, but they fly the under 18s out to a tournament once or twice a year for free.
Well, even
That's
half price,
that's
right? Yeah, half
yeah,
price would be a
like
start, and it would make a big difference because that money wouldn't be swallowed up by somewhere else. It would go back into the pathway,
yeah.
or it would go back into a facility somewhere to improve, to elevate a facility that the kids are using or a club's using. We just need to, I think, basically release more resources for the sport, and give back.
I mean, like, we touched on it. It's such a good sport to watch. It's such a good sport to play. If done right, it's such an easy sport to commercialize in terms of it's fast, it's physical. The guys are all cool. The girls are all cool.
Mhm.
It's welcoming. Anyone can come. Like it's just such a good sport to be involved in. And you've obviously been in it for a couple of years now, and you can see how much you're loving it nowadays.
Yeah, and any chance I get in my schedule to go, I will go. And like I said, it helps if I can take my son along sometimes, and it helps that he absolutely loves it. And you see 6 month olds there or 3 month olds there, and they do like the Lion King thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool. And I've always said, like, if you broaden it, it should be marketed more as an experience. First time, like before people fall in love with the sport, they got to fall in love with the experience. They don't understand the sport the first time they go.
No.
And where else can you go where you can watch sport, be it a concert, drink, meet people? be excited, be disappointed, like all in one fairly priced night out. I think that's how we have to get people into the arena in the first place.
Yeah.
And but part of what makes ice hockey special and so successful in this country is kind of like the niche feel. Like, that's never lost on me. It's like that community feel. It's like when that Financial Times article came out a few weeks ago. Like I guarantee they were not expecting that level of pushback.
No, 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 no. I've someone sent it to me the day before I posted it because no one had really touched it. I'd saw it and it was long, so I was like, I can't really be asked to read it right now. So and eventually I read it, and I wish I didn't. I wish I didn't, but I was like, oh shit, she doesn't realize what she's done here. And then within like 12 hours, I was like, yep, there you go. It
Yeah,
had thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Like if you mess with one of us, you kind of mess with us all, and that is that niche kind of like environment about it.
and that's why like we should be so proud to be involved in ice hockey. It's like it's a huge sport, but it still feels like a. I don't want to be cliche and icky, but it still feels like a family, right? Like
Yeah,
everyone's so proud of their sport and very protective of the sport. So when that got posted, at first I didn't read the whole article. I just read the title, and that was frustrating. That was annoying enough. And then when you actually read, like, you think, why have they wasted the energy and time on this? Like, surely the Financial Times would be better off spending their time and energy focused on why ice hockey is really commercially successful, why so many people
yeah.
watch ice hockey, the business model behind ice hockey. But to go for something that no one would ever think of
On the
was
TikTok
bizarre.
books, yeah, cool. What?
Weird.
So I learned something that day though because I didn't know that was a thing. Maybe
Well,
it's my advancing years. I don't know, but I didn't know like the TikTok book trend was a thing until
uh,
that day. I had to ask one of the cool cats. So I was like, what's going on here? And they filled
yeah.
me in. But I was like, what of just nonsense and disrespect to all of our female players, fans, physios, fucking penalty boxes, everything you could. We got women everywhere, and it's
Yeah.
not because they read a bloody book.
No, and I can only think that the journalist Kitty who wrote it that she came across one person who had read a book and started watching ice hockey and then tried to make the whole narrative fit, but it couldn't have been further from the truth, which is why we ended up getting the title changed.
Oh, did
And
you?
yeah, it went from why British why romance readers rescued British ice hockey,
Oh
and
yeah,
then
thanks.
we
Thanks.
yeah we collectively pointed out that actually no, here's all the numbers that rescue British that make British ice hockey very successful, and then they changed it without even responding to why romance how romance readers found British ice hockey. So it
Oh,
was even a
really?
disrespect of that. They
Yeah.
silently changed it without even acknowledging that they posted something as a complete lie.
Did you get any sort of response from them at all?
Yeah, it's the same nonsense as anyone else. Like the editor, had had a couple of emails back and forward, but it was like it was painful.
Just like a token generic email. Thanks for coming. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, they stand by what they said. The reporting was nuanced and all this rubbish.
But I guess because, like I said, you pissed one of us off. That would have been a most viewed article that woman's ever done
No,
and ever will do again. Your career's peak, love. That's it. Like
well,
it's you're done.
that was the annoying thing about it. You didn't want to call it out because then
Yeah.
they're getting clicks, but also you have to call it out because it was absolutely disgraceful in like how it was done. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I very highly doubt that she ever has a piece that gets that many clicks ever again, because yeah, everyone was sharpening the battle axes. Right, I want to take you into the email you sent me, and obviously it's together
yeah,
as one. Ice hockey in the UK, excuse me, will focus on five core principles underpinning the work of the executive teams. These include professionalize to perform. So single, best in class operating model fit to serve the sport, and then recruit a number of new roles, sorry, to better support clubs, players, coaches, officials, and volunteers. United pathway and strategy from grassroots to elite across men, women, and para. Can you kind of talk us through point one a little bit?
yeah. You did well there. So this will all be published. Obviously, we've got there'll be a lot of information going out in the next 29 days or 28 days or so. But the first one is really about, we touched on it earlier. The sport is the sport is a professional sport in this country at a very high level. The structure supporting it needs to be as professional as that. Um, to do that, we need more people paid, accountable, serving the members, the fans, the officials, the coaches, the referees, the volunteers. Um, the and the only way to do that is to merge, because you, like I said, you reduce the amount of individuals doing the roles, you pay people the right wage for that role, and you hold them accountable. So that's the first part of it, and then they all sit within a operating structure that has been tried and tested in national governing bodies for years. But again, that requires people, reporting lines. We've got that. We haven't got enough people or enough, I guess, systems in place to deliver what's needed. And then a single pathway. At the moment, we've got the sort of lower end of the grassroots of the pathway taken care of by England and Scotland with direction from IHUK UK, and then obviously IHUK UK from sort of 16s up. That makes no sense. There should be just one plan from the first time a kid touches a stick all the way through to hopefully playing at the elite end, or if they don't want to play elite, they end up playing socially or rec or semi-pro. But we should look after everyone exactly the same from the moment that they're there all the way to wherever they want to stop.
The second kind of point was enhance the experience, make it easier to join, play, coach, officiate, and volunteer. Improve communication with members and initiatives to reduce cost. And then finally, quicker resolutions to queries or concerns. Now, I imagine the last part of that is having a paid person in place that is, if you've got concerns, you touched on it earlier, communication's key. Having someone within a role that is your job. Be in touch
Yeah,
with people, communicate, sort out concerns people may have.
yeah, and I never like making excuses that our people do the absolute best they can, but we, compared to comparable nations or even other sports, we are significantly under resourced. So it's, you have to prioritize everything you work through. But what's the priority to us isn't the priority to someone else who's making a query or a complaint or whatever it might be. So we need to have appropriately trained, resourced people in those positions. Communication, I've always said, like, you solve 90% of issues with proper communication. If people feel like they're being communicated with consistently and they're being kept in the loop on certain things that matter to them or the sport, it stops the amount of queries, and it makes them realize that they're very much part of the same journey. And yeah, we want to make it as easy as possible to play, join, coach, or volunteer. Why wouldn't we? But we've got different systems, maybe systems that aren't fit for purpose, processes that maybe not as slick as they could be. How do we provide even more value to members? For me, like, every membership should come with 10 discounts, just at the most,
Whatever it may be.
basic level. Yeah, like we're then bringing, like, those members are going to spend money on travel, kit, etc., etc. We can easily go out there with the right time and resources to go and find partners to deliver those people to our very willing captive audience of 14,000 odd members. And even could we create another tier of membership where we provide behind the scenes content? Like, I would love nothing more than, maybe, the main membership is X price, but for another membership for say £2 a month, we
Yeah,
create a documentary once a month on a club within the system. And I don't mean like an average documentary. I mean like a Netflix quality one,
yeah,
where we go and focus on, I don't know, Basingstoke or Solway, whatever it might be, or a women's club or a para club, and create an hour-long documentary on what makes that club special, and put
yeah.
that behind a paywall. But any of that additional revenue of say £2 a month goes directly back into the club system, so it goes back into where it came from, or what it's focusing on. So I think there's definitely ways that we can give more value to current members, but also elevate the experience for those that want behind the scenes footage.
While Henry's talking about that, ladies and gents, don't forget you can subscribe to 4,000 Counting on Facebook, which will mean you get to see this interview and many other interviews two, or well, at least two, in this case, 3 days before anybody else. And like that's why we've done it. It's like £1.79. It doesn't. We're not trying to like make millions of it, but like if the more people that buy in for us, meaning the more places we can go, the more content we can give. And I just think like you say, you chuck a couple of quid. I know loads of fans that would players, fans, whoever it would be. They would love to see. Imagine you, like you say, you do a documentary about Basingstoke being gone for 2.5 years, and then the rink comes back, and how it goes, and then getting the juniors started, and like just that would be worth a watch. And I think it would do very well numbers wise, which would then be attractive to sponsors.
Yeah, exactly, and it just raises the presentation of the sport. If you're producing high quality content, like perception's reality. But if we had 2,000 members paying £2 a month, we would be able to hire a filmmaker internally to film and edit. Even when GB go away, if GB women go away, we could sit down, 11 pairs of two players and do teammate talk. That's 11 months worth
Yeah,
of content. You split that out over 11 months. Um, Things like birthday messages from your favorite player,
yeah,
things like that, just to give extra value for those that want more. We don't have, we could do it, but it would be rubbish right now because it
yeah.
would be on an iPhone. But it's very easy to figure that out. And like I said, the audience wants more content. You're proof of that. They want more high quality content, and we need to give that to them. But to do that, we need to find a way to do it.
Well, I think the hockey fan base in the UK, our followers, especially, they buy in, and they do want more content, and they do want to talk about it, and they want to be communicating. Like we talked about, like how communicate is important within Ice Hockey UK for like sorting queries and stuff. But even like just what we do on the page here, fans feel like they probably have a bit more of a voice before Thousand Account being around. And like, in fact, so at the end of this, I'm going to run through a couple of questions that have come in from them. But like, it's valuable resource for me having like other people's opinions all the time.
Yeah, 100. This is why, in a memo that went out to members today, I put my email address in there. I'm very open to any questions. I'll answer any question fully. There's no conflict of interest or lack of transparency. Any money that comes into the sport isn't going to the pockets of other people. It's going in. It needs to go back into the sport because there's not enough there already, for some of the figures I've given you. So yeah, the more feedback we get, the better. Which is one of the reasons why this merger was so important, because I've still not met anyone in 3 years. Watched them come out on the 17th of December, but I've still not met anyone in 3 years in the role that thinks having three governing bodies makes sense.
Yeah, me neither. I think more so now, from what I've been reading, what I've been hearing, and people I've been talking to, most people seem very pro merger to the extent that nobody I've spoke to has been against it so far. So I think the vote this time, if yeah, if all being well, I would be very surprised to not see it go through.
No, we're in a very different place to when they tried it before, right? We're not
Yeah,
like we've got the trust of the government in Ice Hockey UK. England's raised its standards in terms of governance, new board, independent members on both boards, new processes, better queries, long term policies. So all the boring stuff's been done. Now we want to do is the exciting stuff, and we want everyone to be a part of that.
want to take you to the next point. When next point, then point three. Member centricity, giving members an amplified voice at board level across England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales. Greater investment in progressive welfare, safety, and assurance programs, and then access to greater levels of public funding to invest directly into the sport. Obviously, we've touched a little bit on the fact that, Scotland weren't compliant, England weren't compliant, England now are. But being under that Ice Hockey UK banner with everybody merged, all of a sudden everybody's now compliant, and that's just like one of the first things we can go after, right?
Yeah, look at other sports. So I mentioned other nations, but if you look at other sports in this country, um, I might get the figures slightly wrong, but hockey, for example,
Yeah,
not our hockey, field
field
hockey.
hockey. Yeah,
Yeah, they get 17 million, and all this is publicly available. You can have a look online. I think I might get this wrong. Curling gets 7 million. Fencing,
7 million for curling.
type in funding awards, you'll see it all online. And
Don't get me wrong, by the way, it's probably low key one of my Winter Olympic guilty pleasures. But I'm never going out on a Friday night to go watch a bit of curling. If I come in
and
from the pub and it's on the Olympics, I'll probably watch it. But
yeah, and
I'm
look,
never going to watch it as like a. It's just yeah, I don't know.
no, and like what curling have done at the Olympics is very impressive over the years. They've built a real reputation. So I'm not saying they're funded too much. I'm saying if you look at what we're
We're not
funding in
funded
Paris,
enough.
no, and the cost of running this sport is very expensive. Um, but the value of getting it right is huge for even the economy. If we hosted the World Men's, um,
Oof.
the economic impact's about 65 million.
Yeah,
Like no other sport in the Olympic system, apart from obviously hosting the Olympics or World Athletics, etc., can deliver that. So we think we're a really good return on investment for UK taxpayers' money. So yeah, absolutely. If we merge, we become co-compliant, and we can start to unlock some of those funding cycles for. And the majority of what we'll be going after, because it's the place we haven't been funded yet, is that grassroots through to talent ID. There's no investment in 0 to 20 in ice
yeah.
hockey from the public agencies. So that needs to be righted. But to do that, you have to merge or be very
Just
savvy.
imagine like there was funding available to stick on a learn to play program in every rink in the UK for free. 1, 2 hours a week, whatever it was. Where because the barrier to entry for ice hockey is mad. Like it's mad how expensive it is. Although, ladies and gents, get on Vinted and stuff like that nowadays. Brody's got a load of kit that he got when my brother went to see Joe Greener in America because he got some hand-me-downs from Greener's kids and Ryan bought a couple of bits in some shops. But the other day, my mum sent me a link, and on Vinted, it was like ice hockey starter kit for 3 to 4 year olds, and it was a pair of shorts, a chest plate, elbow pads, barrel gloves, and it was like £21 50. Like there is cheaper ways of getting in, but like just being registered and all that comes with that, monthly subs, all that comes with that, how expensive sticks are, how expensive skates are, everything like that. If we had a bunch of equipment and we had ice time where even if it wasn't free. It was as close to being free as possible. You know, it wasn't much more expensive than going to the Power League or going to try like Brody's doing baby ballet, he's doing gymnastics, he's doing skating lessons, he's doing all these different things. But imagine like you could get him down the rink and it was like, hey, come try this. It's not going to
Yeah,
cost you anything. You
and,
might love it.
exactly. And that's why initially we've had to go, have to work in partnership with brilliant organisations like the NHL, because that means we can deliver the street program for free,
Yeah,
in collaboration with them. But after that, hopefully people fall in love with the sport. They either become fans of their local team or they want to learn to skate. That's when obviously the barriers come about.
yeah,
So how can we subsidise that? And that's really where some of the public funding we would see going. But even subsidising the costs for existing players or working with equipment partners to give like I said, everyone a discount
yeah.
on one stick a year or whatever it might be. Right? It might not sound like a lot, but we just want to be able to give more to the sport, and for that we just need to be more streamlined.
The fourth point in the email here, sustainability for generations to come. And then it says robust, transparent governance to give everyone certainty, more financial resources to serve the sport, a deeper focus on breaking down barriers to interesting barriers to entry, what we were just talking about, cost, ice availability, and equal opportunities. Now, these are probably three. I was going to get into some fan questions in a couple of minutes at the end, but there are 3 or 4 of the points that a lot of the fans raised were, equal opportunities, barriers to entry, and obviously the fact that you've got that right there in the fourth one is is ideal. How do you break down more barriers and how do you do that within like the entire country?
Well, I mean, there's different kinds of barriers, right? The main one is usually ice time and cost.
That's
I,
yeah.
I, I would say the cost of it. We've gone through that. There needs to be some element of public funding, but even when I look at you mentioned about Vinted or whatever, like if we're a central body, there's so much kit floating around the sport, right?
Oh
Whether
yeah,
it's a GB level or and people grow out of kit and they don't know what to do with it. There's different ways that they can go with it. But if we had one national scheme that was run by Ice Hockey UK to repurpose that kit,
yeah,
like I know there's different initiatives out there, but if we had one, we can work in partnership with those existing initiatives, or we do it ourselves as a no cost, just a delivery cost, or whatever it might be. Like from a waste point, from a waste of money point, that would be a really sensible solution. But there's loads of things like that we can do if we've got one decision maker, one board, one shipping company. Like it just makes sense.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
but
like
then
Canada used to have like play it against sports, or Canada, America, wherever. Play it against sports. You can go and get your secondhand baseball glove and your secondhand bat, and
yeah,
you can pick up a pair of Bowers, little Johnny down the road's growing out of, and that's pretty much what you're talking about. And
yeah. And I mean we've got short covers, all that kind of stuff from GB that have been located in from 10 years ago. Now they might not be the best, but as a starting point, like
yeah,
that's the kind of thing just to get people to try the sport and fall in love with it, and then they're more happy to invest, and then it's not seen as a wasted cost. But then ice availability, we do need more rinks. But that's a common problem in a lot of countries, but particularly in ours, and that's what we care about. The funding agencies aren't going to help with that until we show a real demand. Now we know there's a demand for it, but the real demand will be the broadened player base. So the NHL Street program, if 30,000 kids try that every year,
yeah,
that's a lot of that's a big number to say. Look, 30,000 kids are interested in the sport. 3,000 of them want to become members. There's not enough ice time. We need rinks here, here, and here. The other part of that is synthetic ice. I think we're in
nice
that unique,
stuff. Yeah,
yeah, like Ocean Ice and Shark Blades. We've had conversations with them about
yeah,
partnerships. Really low cost compared to ice. Obviously, you find a warehouse within 20 minutes of someone's homes, um, and you put a full pad in there with the boards and everything. But in terms of obviously costs of energy and accessibility, and it's got parking right outside, you're not going to play games on that. But as extra skills development or someone that just wants to train an extra
yeah,
couple of nights a week, like what a great opportunity. And could we partner with basketball? Could we partner with um, uh, ball hockey in these venues where there's two or three different sports, urban type sports? So yeah,
yeah.
there's lots of ways we can do that. And then equal opportunities is again taking the cost out of it as much as possible at the beginning and saying, look, anyone can come and try the sport for free with the NHL Street program. And then it's about how do we find funds to subsidize those that really need it in those early years.
Yeah, shout out GB Men's Masters. They got their first win against Haiti. Good to see a few of the boys celebrating. What a spot for that ball hockey in Bermuda, by the way. Neil Francis sent me a picture. I was like, come on. They look like they're having the time of their life. And it sounds like such a good thing to be involved with. Like that was one of the questions I've been asked actually before today was the potential for ball hockey to perhaps come in with like Ice Hockey UK and maybe get a bit of a partnership going there. Is that something you see happening in the future as a good like talk about barrier to entry? Well, ball hockey, you need a pair of trainers, a helmet, some leg pads, and a jock strap, and some gloves, and you're pretty much good to go. Like,
Yeah, you would have seen Liam Kirk got announced as an ambassador a few weeks ago, and that was part of a discussion between me, Liam, and Chris from Ball Hockey. Chris has reached out for a meeting a few months ago. We're going to meet when he's back from Bermuda,
living the
and
dream.
yeah, exactly right. And like, it's definitely a partnership we should explore because it's a much more accessible sport. If and kids might go into that first, then come to us, or vice versa. So yeah, there's definitely something that will happen there, and having Liam promoting both is a good thing.
Quite a few of the Slough Jets boys were playing for well, I think it's classed as juniors, like under 23 GB ball hockey, like Seb Moore, Christian Moore, and a few of those guys, Halika. But these are good ice hockey players, and at some point they're probably going to be going into the National League and stuff like that. Getting those guys involved with the program, and they are, ice first and foremost, but they can come down and play, and it just, again, it spreads awareness. Ball hockey is so easily accessible. You see, like Spit and Chicklets do the Chicklets Cup, like the way they do that. I was trying to find something to let Brody watch the other day. So we got the Chicklets Cup because he's hockey daft. So we sat and watched it, and it's the first time I've really like sat and watched it. It's awesome. Like these guys are going after it, the skill level, and then they were going through like the teams, and it's like this guy played in the Coast, this guy played in the A, this guy played in Quebec Major Junior League. I was like, damn, like this is some like serious hockey players just on trainers.
Yeah, and I don't think we should see it as competition, like for ice hockey,
No,
right?
absolutely
Like
not.
it's,
No.
I think you play both and you fall in love with one, but you can, you know. So I would never see it as a threat to ice hockey. I think really there's only upside from working together, and yeah, I pointed that out to them, and we'll meet when they're, like I say, when they're back from Bermuda.
Well, that'd be interesting. Just all of a sudden, the merger comes, and then something like that comes, and it gets more eyes on. You got the NHL street, and everything kind of being under one banner. It makes so much sense. I can't think for one reason why people would vote against it. Like,
And that's what I really like. This is why I want people to tell me what, like, where the risk they see is, because
yeah,
I'm very open to discussing it, and if there's a risk that I've not seen or we've not seen it as groups, then we need to go and look at it. But the work we've
yeah.
done on this, it's constantly we're constantly finding wins across the sport for everyone from bottom to top, both sides, male, female, para, sem. Like you can just do more, right? And you can do things better. It's that simple.
When you've been having these meetings amongst yourselves, obviously we're saying to the public here, like, where do you see these risks? What have has anyone come in with any real risks that surprised you, or has it kind of been pretty straightforward? Because I can't see, I really can't see where the risks would be in having a merger.
No, I mean, of course, there are things that people might um, want more information on. That's completely natural. We want to
Yeah,
give as much information as possible. There's nothing we're hiding in this. But I've not had anyone come to me with a genuine thing they're really concerned about, that we haven't been able to answer. And a lot of times, like a risk, until someone asks about it, they think it's a risk. And then when they get a very straightforward answer, oh, you've already thought
yeah.
about that. That's cool. But for me, the biggest risk, and we don't lead with this because it's not very positive material. The biggest risk is not doing it, because there is no public funding for England. There is no public funding for Scotland. And yeah, I think there's a much bigger risk in not getting this done and then working as a entire sport to build something that is far better suited. Because if we were to rebuild ice hockey now from scratch, it wouldn't look like it does.
No.
So this is an opportunity to basically start with a blank slate. We've got 5 principles. We stick to those. We work with our member groups, and we build like a ice hockey of the future 2.0.
Okay, the fifth principle is fully recognize potential, greater investment in the development pathway for young athletes and Olympic aspirations, opportunity to grow the sport, innovate for members and improve facilities, and elevate all levels of the game through commercialization, which we've kind
Yeah,
of pretty much nailed that point just throughout what we've been talking about today. So I want to get into a couple of questions that have come in from elsewhere. One of them is, would the English and Scottish national junior under 19s and under 16s would they remain separate? Would we still have England and Scotland teams that
again,
face off
that's
against each other? Like,
yeah. I think there has to be an element of that. We would definitely be led there by GB, but having these experience camps and these experience tournaments,
yeah,
we want to give more opportunity for kids to play, but we want to find the right trips and the right tournaments. And if we do England versus Scotland, certainly. So I think that's the kind of detail we need to work through. It's not, again, it's not about taking anything away. It's about, I think, especially at the 19s level, there's not a GB at 19s. So
no.
I don't see why there wouldn't be an England and Scotland at that level. But do we need 3 teams at 16 plus everything else? I don't know. But what we don't want is parents to feel that they need to pay for absolutely everything, because that's when the sport gets a bit crazy. So that's the kind of detail we can work through. But I think
Like
there's
you say,
definitely,
three teams at 16s. Realistically, what you're looking at, one of those teams should be made, well, will be made up of the best players from the two teams.
yeah,
So perhaps you keep that in the trial process, or you
yeah.
know,
we're open to absolutely everything. And again, that's to discuss. We'll discuss with members, but a lot of time we hear that there's too many costs, there's too many teams that they need to be a part of.
Yeah.
For me, we want to simplify it. Like if you're selected for GB, it is free from for the World Championship levels. If we can subsidise the pathway lower down, which I really think we can, down to 14 at the very least. And then we've also got the UK Ice Hockey Foundation, which is working typically with younger kids and clubs to subsidise the costs there and look at conference and regional models. So I do think we'll see a lot more subsidised ice hockey for juniors. But how that looks, that's something we'll discuss with members.
Here's another question for you. Can players register for two clubs across the two countries still? And I guess what they're meaning by that is we've seen, for example, maybe a Solway junior
Yeah,
playing for, I don't know, Billingham or something like
yeah,
that. They still gonna, yeah, still gonna be able
yeah.
to do that. Cool. That was easy. That was an easy question. We like them.
Uh,
We like easy questions. Um, Again, like this one we've kind of touched on, but it's probably a bit like how long's a bit of string. But if the proposed merger was to go ahead, what level of funding do you believe the sport could unlock from UK and from government? And where would you direct this funding to? And what tangible, I like this question actually, a bit long-winded, but I like it. What tangible goals can be hit within year one of the merger? That's a good question.
year one. Okay. There was about five questions in
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Yeah,
sorry, no,
yeah.
it was, yeah, it was a few.
Um, so what funding could we go after? I think internally, like I said, you would realize a whole lot of savings and efficiencies. So that's almost like a funding pot in itself.
Yeah,
You could go after Home Nation Sports Council funding. So that's Scotland, England, Northern Ireland, Wales. I said we're the biggest sport that's not funded by any of those, which is crazy. There's also lots of pots and grants for like community activity and health and wellness and inclusion. And Shell Street program is brilliant for that.
yeah,
So there's a lot we can go after that we currently can't. And in terms of, I think that was most of the question. In terms of year one,
yeah,
I basically what would happen is we'd hope to get the merger vote on the 17th of December, and then we would use 2026 and a full calendar year to basically work through the detail of the merger. So that's working with the working groups and the members. That's working with the governance agency and the law firms, and that's working with the sports councils and the boards to make sure that those five principles are delivered at the very best level. So if that's year one, there won't be a huge amount of change in that year. It will take 12 months to deliver this properly. But year one after that, I think you'll see significant change around how the pathway is delivered, the cost of the pathway, the support for clubs. I think you'll see a much more modern organisation that directs much more value towards the ice. I think that's where people feel it. It's like I said, it's the cost for kids, it's the cost for parents. Can we do more for rec? Can we do more for NHL 1 and 2? There's loads we can do if we've got more funds.
yeah. No, pretty much everything we talk about, it does come back to that funding and bringing that money in. Um, I'm quite happy with the fan questions that have come in, and we've kind of, I was reading through them as you were talking there. We've kind of pretty much touched on everything that they've said in their questions. Is there, before we leave here, is there anything that we maybe haven't touched on that you wanted to get out, and any kind of final thoughts that you want to leave in the voters' minds before they do go on the 17th? I feel like I'm doing like an election campaign here right now, but is there what would you like to kind of be the leaving thought to the voters?
No, I mean, I wish yeah, you did very well there. I should have probably come up with a really catchy final sentence. But I think for me, it's like, is this the best ice hockey can be? And I think the answer to everyone is no. Has everyone got an idea of how it could be better? Yes. And we just need to design that. And that can only be designed as one, really. And there's so many problems or opportunities that people come to me with, and I'm like, I hate to sound like a broken record, but a merger will solve that. A merger will solve that.
Yeah,
That will be solved through a merger. And I hate myself for saying it because it's like I'm making excuses, but The facts are we simply don't have the resources to do much more than we're doing. The last 3 years, we've radically improved the governance of Ice Hockey UK and England. We've shown that all governing bodies will actually want to work together. We've introduced things like the NHL Street Program. We're delivering more opportunities for both men and women at senior level. Both men and women have got record results, and now we need to invest in the entire sport, the entire system. So, yeah, it's boring, but there's one solution for everything, and that is genuinely merging. And we all love the sport, and we want to make it work. But for that, we need more clear direction, and more efficiency and more resource.
I did say that was going to be the last question, but you said something there that it hasn't floated in my mind the whole time, but I thought I better, it has now. So I thought I better ask a question while I got the chance. Is there a contingency plan if the vote goes no?
Really good
Or
question.
are we like all the marbles are in, all the chips are on the table, we're going for a yes only kind of strategy?
Well, no, I mean, I'm not that crazy. I think to me, it makes so much sense. And to everyone I've spoken to throughout 3 years, and through the dummy vote, like we want to give more to the sport. So it does make complete sense to say yes. But should something go left field, it will be status quo. And if everyone's happy with status quo and it's the best, they believe it's the best it can be, then obviously vote no. But if everyone believes that it could be better and that they've got more trust now in the leadership and the way that sport's been run over the last at least couple of years, then definitely take a leap of faith, because nothing's going to be taken away from people. It's going to be the opposite.
Well, Henry, thank you very much. Ladies and gents, we are very pro merger here at 4,000 Counted. If you are one of the lucky few that do get to vote, really do consider our kids' futures here. We're not just the GB program, like the next generation and the generation after that, and the ones that are going to keep coming. This, in my opinion, is going to be the best way of making it successful. Please do comment on this. We'll be checking out the comments. We would love to know what you think. We would love to know what you are voting if you are voting, and I'm sure many of you will be voting yes. We are hoping to have some input from the Scottish Ice Hockey and a couple of members from English Ice Hockey as well before this vote does take place. So you're going to get to hear a little bit more about it over the next kind of 3 or 4 weeks here on 4,000 Counting. But Henry, this has been fantastic. We appreciate your time. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Watty and 4,000 Counting. We will see you again for another episode very, very soon. Peace.